Okay. Pause. All right, I'm covered in paint. I'm trying not to get it on anything. So Maria.
Hi.
This is Kat and Zoltan.
Nice to meet you guys.
How are you guys? I can't wait to hear more about you and more from you. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Be More podcast. This is Brittany.
I'm Maria, and today we have two guests that know Brittany very well.
Kat and I were roommates in college.
Nice. Cool.
My junior year,
long?
her senior year, for a year.
Okay.
And we were like relatively, not strangers, but relatively strangers before we started living together.
Okay.
And then
that
like,
makes it interesting.
Our hearts just like loved each other a lot.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
It was really easy.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
Nice.
So she danced with me at Mason Gross.
Nice.
And how do I even remember how I always talk about like that house that I lived with the 10 people in college?
Do I know
Okay,
this?
well maybe
I
you were, this is all hard because this is the time when you were like distanced from everyone that you grew up with.
Yeah, way to expose me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Correct.
So, but yeah, that's Kat and I went to school together, and someone that lived in that house already took class with me, and we became close. And they were like in need of another roommate for the house, and then they were like, "Oh, we'll just bring this stranger into the house that no one really knows, but she'll get along with everybody."
It worked out. That's the bottom line. It worked out.
Yeah. And now they're all my family, and Kitten
Yay.
is like an extension of me. I feel like we lived together for a year, and we just got along really well. And yeah, that's it. And Maria and I went to school together, like elementary school and high school together.
Okay.
She was my neighbor across the street.
Aw.
How old were we? Like 4th grade or something?
Yeah, when we moved in together across the street from one another. But
like
yeah, that's a background. But I mean, did I miss anything, Kitten?
I don't think so. I think that sums it up. We were in a dance together your freshman year and my sophomore year. Yeah, but then other than that, it was like, nothing until 2 years later when we were sharing a bedroom.
Nice.
Yep.
I was like, oh, you were that girl from that one time, right? And you were like, yeah. I was like, nice.
Yeah.
Let's share a room. So, yeah.
And then we lived together. Oh, and sorry, Zoltan. You can introduce yourselves.
How about,
As you can tell, all of my awkwardness carries on really nicely into this podcast.
Oh my God, I
It
can't.
makes for good subjects of conversation.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, so this is my boyfriend, and you are a photographer.
Photographer, coach,
Nice.
teacher, all that good stuff.
Cool.
I mean, I didn't go to school for it. Of course not,
That's
because most
fine.
artists are like, they grow up knowing that, like, at least from like our parents are the type of people that are like, you'll never make money in the arts. You can't do it. You can't do it. And then all of a sudden gig
typical.
culture came out and everyone was like, wait, no, you actually can with gig culture. It's a real thing. People used to
Right.
play before you too, but now it's even more accessible with phones and internet.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something I started doing in high school.
Nice.
But I
Self-taught,
fell in love
okay.
with it. I was that kid who like smelled of chemicals, and everyone was like, "Oh, are you in chemistry class?" I was like, "No, I'm in photography class." Like that's so weird.
That's great.
and you're just like,
that's
can I go in a dark room with a red light all night, like all day? Can I just do that? I don't want to like learn stuff. I just want to be here and play with chemicals
And just do
test
everything.
with light and process.
That's like the
Your
best way
high
to
school
learn.
had a photography, like had a black, or what are those rooms called?
It's a dark room. Yeah, it's
Thank you. Yeah, your high school had one of
very
those.
enlightening. It's just a dark room with a red light.
Yeah,
Dark
that's
room.
about all I know about them anyway. But that's really cool. I don't think our high school had one of those.
No.
I think we were kind of lucky with that, is that we had just, this room dedicated for photos. It's not very big. It was like 4 by 6.
Gotcha.
4 feet by 6
Just
feet.
enough room to breathe.
Just enough. Well, no,
Yeah,
I
really.
wouldn't say enough room to breathe, because the only thing you're breathing is chemical. So, it didn't exactly smell like fresh air. When you came out of the dark room, that's where you're like, oh my God, oxygen. It has a flavor. It does, But the fun part was that, like, you were taking a white piece of paper and turning it into an image. And that was really cool to me. It was just being able to do that.
Do that.
And then, of course, you learn, like, the way that photographs actually work. You know, everyone has their phone, everyone has their camera, but no one actually knows how that process works.
How it like, yeah.
Yeah, just like our computers these days. I don't know.
Right, you turn on the computer and you're like, please, dear God, work.
Yeah, right. Unless you're one of like Gen Z now is learning the code as like their third language.
Which is,
you know,
they're so cool. They get to
my
do
little
stuff
brother
that
is learning the code. You know, it's
so
that
cool.
kind of thing. So you know, I'm the ancient kid now on the block who's like, yeah, I learned with film. You know, and some people are like, oh, my first experience was my iPhone. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, you know, why I do it now is because after college was the first time that I had money to invest in digital photography, because it's not cheap. It's just
it isn't. No,
unless you have parents who can buy you into the process. Most kids, you know, don't have a digital camera that they can learn with. It's too expensive for you to just, you know, save up money and then go buy one. Like, it is affordable these days, but like $1,000, when is that like affordable to anyone?
Not when you're like young.
Right. Not when you're not young, not when you're like even our age. Like, if that was like,
that's true, just dropping $1,000.
Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Like, hold on, what did you sell?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
So,
that's really cool.
You know, that's when I started, was after college, because that's when I finally, like, from working the few jobs that I had after like having a degree, which really didn't get me far, was just it got you into an entry level job.
It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah. And for me, I went to college to learn French and international studies. So what did I end up doing? It was a choice of either go join the UN, which to do that, you know, was like you already have to be in some political realm. And politics sounded awful to me. I didn't want to do politics. I just wanted to like help people. Do something that was giving back in a nice way.
Right.
So it turned into like, all right, what's the only available French job in Richmond, Virginia, which is, you know, capital of Virginia, but it's really southern. There's not much there in terms of artistic jobs, except for like wedding photography and like mural painting and things like that. So Richmond has tons of murals and stuff, and there's a lot of digital, like graphic design is the art like form that makes the most money.
Gotcha.
It's just because everyone has a website, everyone has something online that they need graphically designed, you know, whether it's a logo or whatever. So that's where like most of those artists go. But I got a job translating French for truckers.
All right. That works.
I did emergency roadside service by the phone, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So 3.5 days a week, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that's rush hour traffic going to work and rush hour traffic coming back from work.
Jesus Christ.
You get the morning rush hour and you get night rush hour.
you get both ends of it.
It was perfectly awful. And with the 30-minute drive that turns into 45 minutes to an hour, it's been a 12-hour shift of you speaking 2 languages. You're falling asleep at the wheel, and you're like, I need to do something else. And
that's when you call it quits.
Yeah,
that's when you call it quits. Yeah.
The click moment was a friend of mine, because there's very few straight males in the French language department.
Okay.
It's just every girl who wants to travel abroad, and a couple of gay guys who are just like, yeah, it sounds pretty, you know. So being the one straight guy in there, I had a lot of gay friends, and one of mine was like, hey, we're doing like a shoot, you know, for my birthday. Do you want to come help out? I know you did film. And I was like, yeah, sure.
Oh, that's great.
Help out. I was just like, wait a second, this is so much more fun
Why
than
am I
anything
not
else.
doing
Yeah,
this?
why am I not doing this like every day? And then it was like, all right, well, you know, next tax return, return, I'll just take that and invest it straight into a new business, which is, you know, first digital camera, and like, I already have the startup stuff. So, you know, I used to have that like rule with friends, you know, whereas like, if I know your camera better than you, you should just give it to me.
That's a good rule to have.
Do better justice with it.
Yeah. That's cool. At least you figured this out sooner, you know, like rather than later.
That was 2 years ago. So that's, you know, from 2 years ago, figuring out, hey, this is what I want to do. I moved to New Jersey once I was like confident enough in my skills to be able to like, okay, I can move to a new area that has more work possibly available. closer to New York, closer to like the north end of Jersey, like I can find something. I can start anew. I've got family up here. I can stay with them until I get my feet on. And that's what I did.
Nice. This is great.
Cool. I didn't know any of this, so I'm already learning stuff. This is amazing.
Yay.
Okay.
Origin
Yay.
story.
Yeah. I knew you were not from New Jersey. That was probably, I think, the first, like, the actual conversation we were able to have.
Born Jersey, raised
and then
boat, and then lived in Virginia. And now I'm back here. So
now he's back.
Now he's back. Yeah. He's full circled.
Yeah, full circle.
There are so many things I sent you guys, like some of the questions that we asked and stuff, but there was like a big thing that inspired me to want to bring you guys on here. And I want you to be able to talk about it and talk, like, both of you are like creatives. Like, you guys both, I got to hear a little bit more about Zoltan's background, which makes a lot more sense to me. And like understanding him as a person and just understanding like the project you guys did together a little bit more too. But during like through the really like what I found to be like some of the hardest weeks of the COVID outbreak, when we started to realize like, okay, this is going to happen for a little while. And like when things really were starting to get really heavy, you guys were working on this awesome project that I was able to follow on Instagram. So I wanted to hear, and Maria, we can always like share some links to some of it so that they'll be able to, like, it'll be seen. But I wanted to hear more. I got to talk to Kat a little bit about what was inspiring you guys to do it and what your like your intentions behind it were. But I would love to hear like right from you guys, like tell us more about what you were doing and what inspired you to do it.
Okay. I think it was more Zoltan's idea first of like he wasn't really working much during the everything being closed because there's no events to photograph if you can't have events.
Yeah. I mean, like, when essential things are the only thing running, I'm not going to call myself essential.
Right.
I take photos of things and it's art. Art is not essential. It's nice. It's really nice, but it's not essential. It does not make the world move.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, at least not on the day-to-day.
Yeah, right. On the day-to-day.
Right. It's the function of society necessity versus like the human need necessity.
Right. It's the system versus like the humanness.
The closest to essential I got was like that I shoot real estate photography as kind of like a daily way to make money, because that's not going anywhere. And it's an everyday thing. That's not like I'll get a wedding, every month or like 2 or 5 a year. This is like every single day there's something going on.
Yeah.
That you can make 50 to 100 to 200, however many, hours you put in equals how much money you make. But that's real estate's an essential service, but the photography aspect of it isn't. So there's people in the industry who are trying to find like legal loopholes and things like that to say like, oh, because you're an independent contractor, technically you're not hired by us.
Right.
Single occupant like companies are allowed to operate during COVID-19. Therefore, we think, they never confirmed it. Yeah. We think you should be good. And that was the language that they would use, which was so confusing. You can do it if you want to. We'll give you the work, but if anything bad happens, basically we're not going to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not liable for anything
or whatever. We're not here to help you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just told them, no, I'm not working. Like, I don't need to go into houses every day, because that's somebody's home. Like, you're not wearing a mask at home. You're not worried about wiping your snot on the countertop. Like, no one's worried about that in your own home.
Right.
So if I have to go around and like move things, touch doorknobs, light switches, blinds, things like that.
Too much risk.
It's too much risk.
The time.
And it's not the time. I don't need to bring that back to Kat. I don't need to take it from house to house. If I get it, even if I don't show symptoms, I could be passing it on house to house.
Right.
And there's always that, Trump supporter or whoever who's going to be like, I'm not wearing a mask. It's my own home,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Those people.
I just told them no, I'll come back when the stay-at-home order is lifted. So essentially, I wasn't working. I had to go on unemployment, and I'm a restless creative. I have to make something. It just like it's that nagging voice in the back of the head that says, make something to be relevant, make something to show clients and people who follow you and like your work that like
Yeah.
you're still doing stuff. Like you are creative, your creative process cannot be stopped by anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just became of like, what can I do? What's available to me? And that's always the question of like, what's, you don't focus on what you don't have. Like, I don't have a studio right now. I can't make studio stuff, but what do I have? Well, I have access to a dancer. And
Right.
who's not,
Subject,
well, she's not like, take photos of me.
Yeah.
She's not like, don't take photos of me.
Right.
So
I think
with a little convincing and making sure that, she's doing something she likes too, which is the dancing aspect of the project. We follow TikTok and we do lots of, we were like, oh yeah, cute videos and stuff like that. But there's always like challenges.
Yeah.
So that's where the idea of like, let's just make ourselves a creative challenge where like you do something regarding dancing based off a random word just to give us a little inspiration word.
Right.
And then we'll dedicate a moment of that, or maybe I'll just capture you while you're dancing to make a photograph. So it was like a little give and take of like, you make your own thing based off the word and I'll make my own thing and we'll try to make it either work together or like dedicate a portion of that time to just getting the shot or just, filming the video.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I liked how you said like a lot of people focus on the things that they don't have, which is what is so restricting for so many people to like do stuff.
It's really easy to fall into.
Right? Like I think it's just such a negative way of thinking, even when especially creating art. Like if you have things, like you can take that to so many different levels. So I just thought I think that's like a general thing for everyone, honestly, just to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big thing that like, when I hear on podcasts from other photographers is the imposter syndrome, which is the So which is just,
I think it's also become such a generational thing for us, right? Like it's so hard, and like people who in any sense of being creative, it's so much harder too, because like creativity is so subjective that you really feel like, but I mean, and this is just my personal experience, like going through Mason Gross or being around other people who are creative, like there's this threshold of like what you have to be, like an expectation that you have to be at, and if you don't hit that expectation in those details, then you're not really that thing. So then we step into it and we're like, well, we're just showing up with what we have, and then we feel like imposters, like what we have isn't good enough. And like we talk about that, like how we feel that way with the podcast, the way we're doing it. That's why we're really upfront about saying like we're super informal about this, and we're just trying to have more conversations. And like I talk about it with the work that I do all the time, and like multiple facets, and just in life, there like it feels like it's such a it's become such a generational thing, because our elders have kind of set this precedence of like what it should be, and then when we don't feel like we reach it, right, or like you get a degree or a piece of paper that's supposed to define you for the rest of your life, and then you have it and you're like, okay, great, now what do I do? It doesn't have to be like, I feel like we've been kind of cultivated to be very limited, and we're kind of like, well, we don't want to have that limit, but then it feels almost like, well, if I want to kind of pivot or branch into something else, am I like being an imposter? Am I lying about who I actually am? It's very it's a psychological mess.
Yeah, and part of that is that, for people who have gone to school for whatever art they're in, the programs are sort of still set up to prepare you for a model that isn't actually there anymore, at least in dance. So like that idea that a lot of our professors had was that, they came out of school programs and then like went into a company that, paid them enough and was a long-term thing where you would be part of that group until you didn't want to anymore. So it could last for years. You could have like several international tours, and those companies, there are some that are still out there that are like that, but it's not as prevalent. And particularly for our generation, like our generation's choreographers don't have the financial backing to work that way. So really, when you're our age, graduating and entering the world, that company model where you're sort of set for the job and can sort of just ride it through whatever projects it develops, isn't really there. And so it becomes a lot more about picking up project to project, jumping from choreographer to choreographer, and trying to make your own survival from it, make your own creative choices from it, making your own work, maybe, if that's something that calls to you. But yeah, it's a different world out there. And I still don't know, it's been that way, for a good number of years now, but I still don't know that dancers or artists inside of like college programs or whatever sort of preparatory programs, I still don't know if they totally understand that when they come out until they're in it.
It's like the arts are, the way that you teach art is like the way that, I'm an accountant, it's like you're not in the same corporate structure. Like, it's completely different. But I can see your point. Like, schools, the way they teach it is like everyone's on this corporate capitalist structure. And like you go out, get hired, and you're there for like years. But like, I mean, the way that you explain it, like, it's not like that. And I don't know. And that's a whole system failure. Without me and Brittany also
that's something else we've been talking about a lot. It's interesting to see how,
education.
Yeah, well, in education and systems in general, we've had a lot of conversations about lately. But it's very interesting, like, how there's that parallel, right? And it's funny because I remember when we were in college and we had the opportunity to do internships in the cities with companies, right? And I had met a woman who was with a company that I had interned with, and she was like well into her 70s, and she had been dancing with this same company her whole life, and that was just mind-blowing to me. That was mind-blowing to me. And their company is very well renowned, and he's still traveling and like creating choreography because the choreographer is still alive. But it was just mind blowing to me, and it was so interesting because then at the same time I was talking to somebody else who was I think also interning with the company, was like potentially trying to get like a role with the company. And he was saying how like he'd only been out of school for like 3 years and he couldn't find a company that he could stick to because like all of where they were tiny and he had to keep jumping from place to place. And it's funny and kind of ironic how we talk about how, people have always said that the arts were never something that had that sense of like stability to it. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that was the case. I think that people we don't always see that there was that sense of stability. We were outright in the arts able to say, there's a little more risk involved in this, but I feel like there is that level of like masking the fact that risk is still relevant in all jobs, right? There's no actual sense of jobs, especially now, there's no actual sense of job security anymore. It's just that the arts were more adamant and outright about saying, we might not have this. But as opposed to like our generations are so used to being told like you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a piece of paper, you get a job, you go for the rest of your life. That's what we were told. And that's just not the system we're in anymore, especially now. Like COVID has brought out a lot of like false truths and like underlying issues within like the cracks in the systems. And it's becoming really relevant right now. But I think it's beautiful that you guys were able to find something good. And I said to like when I messaged Kat about it, I was like, I love what you're doing. Tell me more about this. This is so cool. Because people like need more of that. We need more reminders, like you guys said, of the good things and look what you can do with a word. Look what you can do with a perspective. I was trying to find. I wanted to see if I could like potentially. I'm afraid though because my internet's gonna do something.
Screen share.
Are you gonna screen share? Your internet is so crappy.
Be able to do it, but like the picture, and like I also really love like Zoltan, the perspective that you take in your photos. And like, so like, do you do editing on your photos, or do you usually like okay,
I mean, it's not to like an extreme amount. Like I would not call myself a digital artist, which is what a lot of Instagram is, and a lot of people mistake digital artists and photographers. And like there's like a weird middle ground that some people take where they're both, but generally when I think of a digital artist, that's someone who just does exclusively compositing, which is where they can take 5 different photographs that they just find on the internet and make a unique picture that looks like it's real.
Oh,
Right.
I see. Okay.
Right. So like, let's say you take the background of this photograph and you take a plane from this photograph and you take a person jumping from that one and you just smush it all together, and with magic of lighting and editing and, you know, all the Photoshop that you need in the world,
Yeah.
you make a photo. But it's not a photo. You know,
it's like not original.
It's
to me,
not, it's not
the original.
what I think of when I think of film photography. It's not capturing a moment in space and then, you know,
It's
delivering
generating
it.
one.
Yeah, it's making one out of things that have happened. So when I edit images, it's more of a taste for color and for small effects. So something like a little bit of dust here, or a little bit of like, there's one image of her in a bathtub, and we tried to do it with real ice, and it was like, this isn't working, you know. And the whole reason why she was suffering.
That honestly, that was the first thing I was thinking. The first thing actually I was thinking was, ow, my nipples, but
I'm not one who's afraid of ice baths, but I spend too much time thinking about what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah. As opposed to
as opposed to the small framed person who likes blankets and warm environments, and I'm the person who chews on ice and sits in front of the air conditioner without a shirt, like, this is not
you're weird.
You
that
know,
one sentence was that one sentence is probably why Kat and I are friends right there. Like, if you're gonna sum up why we're tiny people who like to be wrapped in blankets, like that. There's so many of those tiny little things that bring us together, Kat. But okay, I love that.
So the ice in that picture, like the ice effect on the water, was like digitally put there. Because our initial plan to create that ice effect in real life didn't really pan out.
Well, let's start there. But I love, because we'll kind of work through a lot of the photos, but and we'll share them so people can look at them too. But I think I absolutely love what you just said about, because I've never thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense. I always wondered why, when you see a still frame, like an actual photo of somebody, especially if it's like capturing a moment, like you just said, there's so much like emotion that's evoked from that. Because you can see that, it's, I'm going to get into like the levels here, but you can see that it's literally a frozen moment of time, right? You can sense that, like the realness in it. And that's what's like evoking emotions for like the psychological sense of like, we never actually get to hold on to time ever unless we get those like photos, but also for the sense of it brings that like relative reality of whatever you're taking a picture of, right? Like that sense of like the opposite of like time is fleeting and this is never necessarily going to happen again. So, and I love that. And I see that in like, specifically, I think this is the first picture you guys took. And then like the whole video of her moving. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do this, but we're gonna do this because I like this. Like, can you guys see?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, this picture, this was the first picture, and I was like, I can't wait to see what happens with this. Because it does all of that, right? Like, and especially like, and the way that I know, like the way Kat moves and like the likelihood of like, especially with movement period, it's hard enough to like capture like a moment of somebody moving, but like when you have something like this, like you can just see it so well. I don't know if this is making sense. Me and putting words to art sometimes like, gets really complicated.
Yeah. So I'm not a creative. I told you guys I'm an accountant. Like, talk about the stereotypical accountant. Like, I can't, like, art to me is just so foreign. And just like, I'm such like a type A logical person. Yeah. But when I see this picture though, like I can see you move. Like I can see you move. Like I can see the motion just afterwards. So I feel like, Brittany, I think I know what you're talking about. Like it just has like a sense of like completeness and also like continuity. Like it's just like I can see that. So
that. I will say that capturing a modern dancer is not easy.
No, because
when you look at Brandon Wolfel, right? He's a really famous like neon photographer on Instagram and TikTok and areas like that. But his thing is all about like low light with like really bright, vibrant colors. And I really dig bright, vibrant colors and like neon. I think that's really cool. But what he uses is exclusively ballerinas. And they all have these really dramatic motions of like the the foot up, you know, and like on the point, you know, standing on tiptoes. Like there's always a moment of flair, but like in modern dance, it's a lot more fluid when I watch Kat move, and there's not necessarily a moment where they're trying to just capture your attention. They're expressing a moment or an emotion.
Right.
Which I think is a lot harder to capture than just like, hey, stand here and repeat this dramatic motion 100 times. It's like, find the emotion moment in the whole dance, and like maybe you can express the dance movement. Like it, like maybe you'll find it. And sometimes we found like after like one or two of these that when I was trying to capture a shot of Kat dancing, I would see a motion that she would do. And then after she finished, you know, like maybe her practice round, I'd be like, okay, I saw this one movement. Can you do that one a few times? You know, just so I can get it right. And because sometimes, you know, we make a sour face, you know, when we're doing something difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And anyone who's not used to being photographed isn't ready to like LIT, like what is it, America's Next Top Model, just like, you know, smile all the time. You know, not everyone's just smizing. So
yeah, but it's I think I love when people who like don't dance or don't have like the connection to dance talk about dance and can still understand, you know what I mean, like get that point across, Kat, right? So one of the things that made me fall in love, I grew up not a modern dancer. Like I was trained classically in ballet, and I did like a lot of like I did like a lot of I was never, my hands didn't get on the floor until I was like a senior in high school. So I never understood like the appeal of modern dance. And I think you explained it so well. Kat, I could watch Kat just like do nothing for like a solid couple of hours, because she just, that level of fluidity that she has. And it comes down to exactly what you said, Zoltan. Like, it's not about, ballet as a genre is very codified. Like, it's very specific, and you only have specific places that your bodies go into. And it's very well strategized. It's planned out. And you can almost kind of see what's going to happen next, right? So like when you watch ballets, you don't necessarily watch them because you think you know what moves are going to be there. It's not a surprise, really. You watch it because there's like a story or a level of emotion put into that. And then that's what becomes like the expressive part of it. But when you watch modern dance, one of the things that I fell in love with watching it is like, you never know what's going to happen next. But the pull of all of that is like, you get to interpret like what you pull out of it, and you have to figure it out while you're watching it, what the intention is behind the artist. And that, weirdly enough, all of that I get in this picture. So I think that it's just, that's just beautiful to be able to do that. And I love that you guys are able to like bring that level of like dance and movement together. Okay, I'm going to try.
You're going to try and do this?
And then I want to hear like Kat's experience from like this. Yeah.
There it goes. Yeah, so this was our first day doing this. So we sort of just picked a spot and we're like, you know, let's just see what happens. So I didn't really think too much ahead, but as soon as we got there, I sort of got to work thinking over what our word was, which this one was pondering. And I started to build parts of a phrase to it. And then basically what I ended up doing was I had the beginning of a phrase, and then I would leave the end open-ended so that I could actually be thinking my way through it, you know, in real time. And I would find my own way back to the beginning again differently each time. And so this, it starts with the beginning of my phrase, and then it goes through to one of the possible endings, but I probably danced for maybe like 6 minutes straight, just through this phrase and like remixing it and reorganizing the chunks just like however felt good. And because the word was pondering, I wasn't afraid to take that thinking time, because that was part of the point of ways sometimes depending on where he was. So it was just really fluid, and it was like a dance for both of us where we could respond to where the other person was.
Because it's not like I knew when it was going to end.
Right.
Because for me, I have no clue. I'm just like,
I have no clue looking at that. I'm like,
right,
yeah, this looks
I don't
so
know where
cool.
it ends. I don't know where it ends. I don't know if she's going to be like, this is my like, ta-da, I'm done moment. Sometimes it's just like, she just like will stop moving and then just look up at me and just kind of like walk away and like, I guess it's done.
Yeah. And then other times like that one, I think he just stopped recording at one point. He was like, you've been going a long time. And I was like, okay.
Because like I'm used to the idea of like for a video or something, it's like there's a
plan.
There's a plan.
Yeah.
You know, for me as a photographer, I'm like, all right, I have a plan. You know,
Right.
There's an idea. There's something I'm going to try and get.
Yeah.
Right.
For this, and especially because it was our first time working together, really.
Really?
We didn't really talk much about what our relationship would be between the two parts. It was just sort of like he does his thing the way he wants to do it, and I do my thing the way I want to do it. And then we'll just see what came out of it when we get home.
and then like going into the next one.
This is a true creative process right there.
Yeah.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
really nice to have that much breath in it, you know, and not have to be like, pose for my shot now, or like, make sure you're standing over here to get my spin moves. Like, you know, that felt too rigid, and
because we're both so used to people just telling us what to do all day.
and part of this project, why I wanted to do it was because I had sort of had the opposite quarantine experience where, you know, things got shut down on a Saturday or a Sunday, something like that. And I had to be back to teaching on a new platform on Tuesday, you know, and it was just going ever since, like picking up like nothing happened. And I was like, well, something definitely did happen, but
there are things happening in the world. Yes.
Yeah. And one of these things is I've never used a Zoom before. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I had the opposite experience where like my class teaching load didn't let up at all, and actually went through what should have been spring breaks and things like that because they, you know, felt like they needed to. So I was having the opposite experience of like trying to run and keep up with this thing, and then just like in my downtime be dealing with the emotional part of being in a quarantine.
I know.
And having all of my like performing things canceled for the whole spring, which I had been really looking forward to. So I was sort of in a tough spot mentally, where like I just felt very tied to showing up for work.
Yeah.
And you know, so I appreciated when he came to me and was like, I want to do this little photo challenge for us, and maybe there can be a movement part for you. I was like, yes, please.
Absolutely.
Get me up, get me moving, and let me have some creativity where I can like really just do what I'm feeling that day.
Right. Because with like COVID and just being stuck in quarantine, like even for me, and granted with my line of work, I'm still behind a computer like Monday through Friday. But even for me, like you're doing it at home, right? Like you're home, so you don't have that outlet outside of your work because you're already home. Right. So it's like, what can I do outside of my usual now? Yeah. And you guys found this project, which I think is pretty cool. I'm looking through the pictures right now, and it's like whatever gets you by during COVID, honestly, is the point of life right now.
Yeah, and like whatever, I think what makes me love it all that much more is like you just invited people in to have the experience with you guys, and like that's why I wanted to bring you on to have you talk about it, to invite more people into it, because I think that there's this level of you hit the nail right on the head, Kat, because I felt literally the same way about everything, like trying to keep going as if nothing happened with again, we're talking about like that splitting of the worlds again, right? Yeah. Trying to go like nothing's happened, and kind of trying to keep everything going for the sake of like students and everything that needs to be happening for the world to keep going, versus trying to like actually take a moment and pause and look and say like, this is not okay. Like, we are not okay, and that's okay. And managing, trying to figure all of that And Maria knows, like, I had conversations with her where I would tell her, like, I don't want to sit on the computer at all anymore. I'm done. Like, I don't want to have another Zoom conversation. I don't want to have to try to dance in my living room. Like, I am over all of this. And it's very, very heavy. And I think the biggest thing for me too, and I've noticed, and you can speak to this too, teaching dance is very, very different than actually experiencing it yourself and like being the dancer. And it's really, really hard to be in a constant state of having to do one, right, on a new platform with totally new expectations, and having to also manage like the mental wellness of the people you're teaching in a totally different way, where you can't be there to love them physically. And then also have to be able to say, okay, well, all of my artistic expression now has been cut out. So I have to keep giving and giving and giving when I don't have it at all either. And that's really hard. And like Maria said, the biggest frustration through all of this was that there literally is no escape. You have to sit in it, you have to deal with it, and there's no escape. So the fact that you guys were able to find something, and I don't think you guys were escaping it, I think you guys were embracing it. The fact that you were able to find a way to give yourself something else to think about and something that made you feel good, I think is really beautiful. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. I want to be able to share that with people. I also wanted to make a note too, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but your pants went like so perfectly with like the scene that you were in that first one, especially like in the beginning when you're facing the building, like the geometric like symmetry and like the nice compliment. Oh my God, I love that. But yeah, I think what you guys did is awesome. And I know you did a week of it, right?
Yeah.
A little bit over.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It was like, something like
we
that.
basically did it until work got in the way.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
I started the yoga program that I'm in. So we stopped when I started that because that is just
Too much work.
Yeah, it's a lot of learning.
Whole
I have to do.
experience.
Yeah.
That whole experience makes your whole every existence of you go like,
Does it
I don't know
jostle
how else to,
everything?
you can tell that I am a dance person, a movement person, but that's
Like,
literally
it's
what
this,
going
it's
through
this.
that is
Can't
like.
you see?
It goes like this. You go like that, and then you go this way. But that's awesome. I know we talked a little bit about like your yoga journey. We've had conversations about that before, but these are all, the funniest part about meeting Kat was that on like this really weird deep level, we always just like got each other. Like there was always like this sense of like we had these similarities and like we could just get along, and there was like nothing like it was a really weird, like this wonderful like bringing together of these two beings that just
the
were
universe
like,
met well that
Yep.
I remember the day that Brittany stopped by just to see the house and like see the room if she wanted it. I remember that day, and I remember you like standing in the bedroom, and I was like, so this is my bed, so yours would go here. and we were just like, all right, cool. and then when you left, I was like, well, that felt good.
Trust your gut. If your gut says it's good, then it's good. Brittany, do you remember that moment?
No, I don't remember a lot of things from college, and I think it's on. The only thing that I remembered is that I loved Kat immediately, so that was all that mattered.
You remember the feeling.
Yeah. And there were, though, like some of the fondest memories that I have of us living together was how we would like both be in our beds, and then there would be weekends where we'd both wake up and we'd just be like up and in our beds, and then we'd just start having conversations, and we'd end up there for a really long time, like in our beds, opposite sides of the room, just talking to each other. Yep.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It was like that was living in that house. We were all like all of us were like everywhere, all forms of everywhere, but it was like the best, like soulful, which is like a nice thing for our friend Mike, but it really was like the best soulful experience living in that house with all of the stuff that we all went through together. It was crazy.
It's true.
But I love that. So what are your, I'm happy we talked about your project, and I'm happy that we can share it with other people. But what are you guys working on anything now? I know we were like lifted quarantine, but just kidding, back in quarantine. But what do you guys like? Do you have any plans to do anything out, like more, maybe even together or separate, like projects and art things over the summer in the coming months?
Yeah, I think once I finish the yoga program, I will be doing some teaching, but I kept it a lot lighter just to be like, I need a break. So I think some of that time we'll be using to work together some more on the project we had, or on something similar, something different. I'm not sure, but we are like, set on working together again on something.
Yeah. I'm just
Really
back
cool.
to work now. So like since things opened back up now, I'm doing real estate again. I'm also teaching kids how to row in the mornings. So
That's fun.
I'm basically up and moving from like 7:30 in the morning until 5.
Oh,
And
wow.
for the real estate work, I then have to put things up online and, upload and stuff. I don't have to edit for them, but I still have to organize the files and send them in and things like that, which takes another like 30 to 45 minutes or an hour. I think one of the things that people like to forget, and I say like to forget because they do know, most people know that things don't just happen.
Yeah.
But the turnaround time on images and creating is not short. Like for any one of
There's
our
a process. Yeah.
the actual turnaround of like going out, finding the spot, shooting for a while, coming home, and then editing, and then posting, that takes between 3 to 4 hours.
At least.
At least.
And for me, it was video editing. It was the finding the music to go along. If I, some of the time I kept the same music to what I had danced to in real life, but I didn't always do that. So that it was definitely a process, which is part of why it just couldn't happen like in this time with both doing stuff, because it was a lot of work. Even though we enjoyed it, it was just a lot to do.
Which is fine when you have the time of the day. Like if you're only teaching 2 classes and I'm not working at all, I have all the time in the day to just sit down and edit and do things like that. When I'm working 9 to 5, right? You come home, you need at least an hour to like de-stress,
decompress.
Decompress. You gotta unpack what just happened to you. It's like coming out of the war zone for me, at least. Because I deal with realtors and homeowners, and I don't know what I'm walking into until I'm there. And I deal with kids in the morning, so and I have to fish them out of the water sometimes because we're working in singles because of COVID-19. And singles are easy to flip. So a lot of kids being pulled out of the water, and
oh my goodness.
I just come home and I need to relax. So it's 6 o'clock. Then we got to eat. I got to make dinner. So it takes
the day gets away from
and
him.
then a half hour to eat. It's 7:30 by the time you're like, all right, shall we do something creative? And it's like, no. So maybe on the weekend, But then
that balance is so important.
Right. A big part of that project was bringing balance back because we didn't have the creative. So, that balance has to be able to shift in order for it to still be useful. We have to acknowledge the times where that would be more work and stress than it's worth at this current point, given the atmosphere we're in. So you sort of have to let it give and take a little bit, which is how it stays useful and doesn't become an obligation or another heavy thing to carry, So.
It should be a release, not crushing. Because
I was just gonna say,
art doesn't come out of a pressure cooker.
Right.
The final product comes out of a pressure cooker. You got to have freedom and control and time to come up with the project.
I love that you brought up process, because I feel like, and that's one of the beautiful things that we get to learn from art. And that's another place where we have this split, where everything that we do in the world is based on product, and then you need to be in the process of it. And that's where most of the work and all of the beauty comes. So I'm going to throw this out there. I would love for you guys to do something in whatever you work on next, where you show you're part of the process. Right? Like if you're going to do something in the future too, where you go behind the scenes, especially if you're going to use it for social media purposes, that's the stuff that a lot of people don't get to see that. And it's an extra, and now I'm super curious, especially after hearing what you just said about it. That would be cool. Process is all of us creative nerds are we know the value of it, but a lot of people don't realize how valuable it is until their interest is piqued and they want to know the how. So yeah, that's really cool. But thank you guys for coming on and talking to us. I miss you, Kat. I miss you so much. I hope that this quarantine goes away soon so that we can all get together.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you do your next projects or whatever you work on, definitely let us know about it, and we can share it on like whatever platforms we're on, so that more people can see it, because I think that's the beauty of the art that we get to share. And hopefully, people will get to see, like you said, like that you're still doing stuff and you're still part of the process, and that you're putting out content so that people can see that you're staying engaged, so that you can build up potential clients. That's also important.
Well, the ultimate goal is that we do enough of those projects between ourselves that people are like, I love that. I want to fund it. How can I hire you guys to do what you do, but in a way that, organizes itself for us,
Yeah.
That's
Could you do that
cool.
at like a space that's getting sold? Like maybe not someone's home, but like at another, like at a space that, and where you bring in the beauty of that space. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll keep supporting you and showing you off so that happens. All right, guys. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Keep creating stuff. Thank you so much for, tell people how they can follow you on social media and see more of your art before I forget.
Okay. So for me, it's cat.reese, cat with a K, .reese, that's my name. It's, my personal / Dancy account. It's just all there, so you'll just know all about me.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, what are you?
And then I'm trying to be everywhere. So I've got a website, Zoltan Suhe Photography, and I'm sure you can leave a description with my spelling of my name.
It'll be, yep.
Because
yes, because otherwise no one will find you.
Tricky. It's phonetically sounded out, but for whatever reason, it's really hard. So zoltansuhephotography.com or Zoltan's Photography on Instagram or Facebook, or you can follow me on Wedding Wire if you need weddings or couple portraits and things like that.
Cool. Everything will be in the description. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's another thing that Maria's the logistics, so we handle all that. Thank you guys. Enjoy your weekend. Everybody go follow them. Stay tuned for more amazing art coming at you from Zoltan and Kat, and we will talk to you guys on the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you later. Brittany.